Fintech Chatter, brought to you by Tier 1 People, leaders in Fintech executive search. Welcome to Fintech Chatter Podcast, the show where I connect with Fintech leaders and share their stories and insights on hiring, raising capital, scaling the business, and of course, a bit of chat. I'm your host, Dexter Cousins, and in 2022, I'm showcasing Australia's next wave of Fintech entrepreneurs. Show your support by watching Fintech Chatter TV on YouTube and giving us a subscribe and like. Or if you prefer listening to the podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. It really helps in promoting the show to others in the Fintech community. Now, here's a few words from today's guest.
Hi, I'm Monica Lewis.
Hi, I'm Lynda and we're from 1835i, which is the innovation and venture partner to ANZ Bank. And we're grateful to be on Dexter's podcast today and explain a little bit more about what we do and how we can connect and partner in the fintech community.
Monica, Lynda, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
I'm really pleased that you're joining me. Lynda, you and I go back 5 years now, I think, when fintech was, in its infancy here in Australia. And so when you got in touch with me to let me know that you were joining 1835i, I was really keen to get you on the show to understand how ANZ is now, great to see them really going all in and participating in the fintech startup space. But Monica, perhaps if we could start with you and tell us a little bit more about your background and what the role that you play at 1835i.
Cool. So I've been at 1835i since its inception in September 2021, when it was spun out from its original home within the walls of ANZ, and that was ANZI. So we are now kind of next door neighbours. We've grown up a bit. We're outside the bank, but we, of course, partner extremely closely with them. And indeed, our mission is to support them in their mission, which is to shape a world where people and communities thrive. So my role at 1835i is in the ventures team. And so we're looking to connect with exceptional founders who have different experiences. They can be at different stages in their journey, but we generally look to kind of Series A-ish stage where a company is kind of still growing, but also mature enough to be able to partner with a larger organization like ANZ.
Okay. Now, Lynda, you're a person who needs no introduction in the Aussie fintech space. What was it that really kind of captured your imagination of, can I say you going to the dark side? Or are we going to have to edit that bit out?
No, that's fine. I mean, obviously I've spent quite a bit of time in early stage scrappy land. And look, I really appreciated the outreach from 1835i, and I was and am excited to be a part of it. I'm only 3 months in at the moment. My official sort of role, if you like, is entrepreneur in residence. And it's funny, I've had a conversation with quite a few people who are sort of like, well, what is that and what does that mean? And I think a lot of people think that it's a coach to the portfolio companies of the fund. And it's not at all, albeit I am trying to work with the ventures team. A lot of people don't realise that 1835i is not just ANZ's venture fund. There is actually a creation lab. There's lab capability to build out new business propositions and spin them out, in adjacent business areas, but obviously with strategic value back to the bank. And that's what I've been involved in, sort of thinking about new business ideas that can be built and spun out. But the way I think about innovation, which I think is what I love, that is 1835i's view, is that innovating, it doesn't need to be siloed. I mean, you can buy, build, or partner, or it could be a combination of those things. And 1835I is not just to kind of invest, which I guess is the buy part of the equation. It's not just to build, which is obviously part of having lab capability, but it is equally to partner. And a real purpose of 1835I is to be a conduit to the bank in terms of partnering opportunities. So I know that there are fintech companies out there that would love to partner with the bank, or actually partner with the bank's corporate customers, do you know what I mean? Or actually with portfolio companies of the fund. So we want to connect with those companies and actually work out, is there a partnering opportunity, as well as work with founders who want to come into the lab and help prove out their concept and build their business.
Cool. We've seen some different models. The Westpac model was to I guess outsource that in effect with Reinventure. We've got NAB then with NAB Ventures, and they seem to be very clearly focused on their business banking side when they're looking at partnerships. And then we've got X15 with CBA, who taken a slightly different approach as well. What would you say from when you look at the different models out there? What would you say kind of differentiates 1835I to all the others?
I guess we're trying to bring all of that together. So we do have a venture fund like the others, which I don't, so there's NAB Ventures, Reinventure, etc. But like I said, it's a holistic. You've got to have a thesis, and you've got to have a holistic way and and have a flexible model of innovating. It's not necessarily a one size fits all, but you do have to have a thesis around the problems that you want to solve and need to be solving. And one thing I do like about what 1835I has done, and just to give some context to the name, because a lot of people also ask, I was going to
ask this, right? Because it seems that corporate venture funds and banks seem to be named after 1980s boy racer cars.
Quite simple, really. So 1835 is the year that ANZ Bank was incorporated. It's no more complicated than that, and they've attached an I to the end in terms of innovation. So that's sort of the premise behind the name. But there was an exercise last year, prior to me joining, where a new structure was formed, and so what was ANZI within the bank is now completely outside of the regulated entity, purely to make sure that we can sort of innovate in a frictionless way. Do you know what I mean? Without sort of needing to necessarily follow sort of bank policies and procedures for things. So, which I actually really do like. I think that should enable sort of making decisions and innovating sort of in a faster, better, more seamless way.
And from a ventures perspective, just to add to that, it also helps us to be as founder friendly as we possibly can. So it's much easier outside of that entity to make quick decisions and be really fast if we need to be, which is great. Because we're investing in emerging growth fintechs, and we recognise that we sometimes do need to be a bit scrappy and move quickly.
You make a really important point there, Monica, and I kind of go back to when you and I first connected, Lynda, and I think the biggest issue in the Australian fintech space was the challenge of collaborating with the big four banks. There was some not so great stuff happening at the time as well. What are how are you seeing things kind of differently, given that you were really in the eye of the storm? You were seeing a lot of things firsthand, being at Stone and Chalk at the time and helping a number of startups. And how have you seen the big four banks in general here change their approach to working with fintech startups?
Look, I think they realise they need to. And as you said, they've had different approaches to trying to do that. And look, it's a journey, and I think everyone is still sort of learning and trying to do it better. I mean, let's not be shy. These are large organizations. Yeah. So I think it's also difficult for them, as well as actually for the startup on the other side to go, oh my gosh, I want to talk to, where do I even start in terms of trying to connect into this large beast? Do you know what I mean? So it is really difficult from either side. And I think that corporate partnering, it's it's a bridge that I think is actually getting a little bit more solid, which is great. And I think that's a result of the community consolidating and growing and aggregating, which is great. However, it can be better. Like let's not beat about the bush. And that's essentially a purpose and an objective of 1835I. I mean, we're a team of under 30 people, so we're small. That includes both the venture and the lab, where we can pull in resource and we can recruit more resource. We've tried to make the model very, very flexible, and we have and continuing to sort of build and maintain an engagement model with the bank to make that really efficient for fintech companies that we speak to, but also in terms of sort of the conversations that we have with the bank across the piece. So, we want to be the conduit and port of call for the community if they want to speak to ANZ.
Yeah. And Monica, what is the kind of thesis? Are there any particular themes or types of fintechs that you're looking at? Is it a B2B? Is it stuff that's going to benefit the bank? Are you looking at the technology? What are the things that you're looking for?
Yeah, so we align directly with ANZ's strategic priorities. That's very intentional. So we invest in and partner with businesses that across a couple of segments. So one, home ownership. So people saving for buying, owning, selling homes. So that component. Secondly, looking to entrepreneurs who are starting and running and growing small and medium businesses. And then third, companies who are sort of moving capital, goods and services around the world. So trade flows and all of that sort of, I guess, quite complicated stuff. And then lastly, just more broadly, transforming businesses through data, analytics, digital technologies, and kind of that world.
And in terms of, and I'm thinking of some real examples here that are, stand out to me, who've done exceptionally good jobs. Slyp and Look Who's Charging, who I think are two that have worked with all of the big four banks. And I remember interviewing the Look Who's Charging founders a few years back now. And I think they said something to me which really kind of resonated, which was it was almost this kind of trifecta for success, which was you've got to have a solution that not only solves a pain point for the bank, but for their customers. You have to have the right governance and kind of security and risk structures in place. And also you have to then go out and make sure that you're speaking with the right people in those organizations and the right stakeholders. Of those three, are there any others that you're kind of looking for when you're looking at you're looking at potentially investing in a startup?
So I think the solution is obviously the starting point from a sort of thesis-led investing way of doing things. But what we try to do is partner with and invest in organizations who do have those sorts of similar structures. So governance in place, identifying the right people, and we can help with that. As Lynda said earlier, we have a dedicated partnerships team to bridge that gap. So Look Who's Charging is a great example of getting that right and just hitting the ground and running with it and being super successful in their integrations with the banks. But that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do is to set founders up for success and provide that, as Lynda said, more solid bridge to the bank, because it's a tricky river sometimes to cross, to extend that analogy.
Yeah. Obviously, a lot of investors will say, they look at the founders more than anything else as, investing in the people. What are the kind of qualities that you look for when you're looking at founders, if you're going to see them as being a potential fit for 1835I?
That's an interesting one. I think a big one for me is humility and recognizing that you're not an expert in everything. So for founders in particular,
that's 99% of founders ruled out there, Monica.
Which is so hard.
Sorry, followers.
Our founders are very humble. So I I think, as is necessitated by being a founder, there's an extent to which humility isn't a great trait. You have to be bold. You have to take risks and really believe in yourself. And founders will always be the expert in their business and their USP. But I think that recognizing that if you want to work with big organizations and have an impact in a way that a bank like ANZ can help enable, you need to recognize that it requires more than your expertise on your subject matter in order to be successful.
Lynda, what have been some of the kind of the startups that have really caught your eye? Are there any that you can name? Are there any areas of innovation that have really got you excited?
Recently, or more broadly, or
well, I guess first of all, in your capacity at 1835i, it's I'm assuming now you kind of probably seeing a lot more come to you than previously. Is there kind of noticeable difference for you in kind of where we're at versus maybe where we were, say, a couple of years ago?
Oh, look, I think that the community has grown, exponentially, I think, since we first met, which is great, right? And I see that not just in terms of quantum, I see that across what I sort of call subsector. Do you know what I mean? Because fintech is very broad, right? It's not just banking, it's wealth, it's insurance, it's regtech, there's a lot. There's a lot there, and there's a lot, I think, of companies that sort of play at different levels within those as well. And I think it's a really exciting time because there's so much that is happening at the moment, and not just in Australia, but globally. There is, we've obviously seen CDR, the rollout and open banking. I feel like the whole sector is platforming at the moment. Do you know? And that is something that the large banks have to get their head around. Right? And also sort of how does that change their role and their proposition? And also having a willingness and ability to partner, right? To not necessarily sort of own the whole value chain, and it's not just one size fits all. So I've seen a lot of great startups. I mean, look who's charging is one of them, but Dexter, like I love Trade Ledger. I love there's so many great success stories that have come out, and that's not just in terms of growth in their own right, but also sort of an ability to connect and partner with banks. But I still see so many that struggle to get investment, struggle to grow, etc. I think it's just that, and it's not necessarily fintech, it's broader than fintech. It's actually, that stage where it's really difficult to get investment, and get to that sort of, over that sort of threshold, which is why, at 1835i, we want to work with founders that are pre-seed, and in a non-predatory way, in a flexible model where if actually they are building something that fits kind of, Monica went through sort of the criteria that the venture fund looks at in terms of investments, that is also sort of the thesis that the lab is working. We want to find adjacent businesses and revenue streams which will sort of grow the customer base, etc., that will deliver strategic value back to the bank. And that's also a very broad canvas as well. So we see that there's an opportunity to try to do that, but also do that in a way that is not, slow and expensive and costly for the founder, and also provide services and in-kind services that they need. It's not, we're not an accelerator. Not at all. And we're interested in working with founders that have good ideas, that are at that early stage, that sit in the sweet spot that ANZ is, or 1835i both are looking at, and work together. So there's a lot of opportunity to to do that. And X15, I really like X15. I like their model as well. I think there's room to compete and really sort of serve the community. I mean, like, everyone knows that the market is ready for a shake-up on a number of fronts, and it's sort of putting your best foot forward.
Now, one of the biggest challenges for any startup, any business right now, is talent. Particularly hiring is very expensive. It's a massive risk to the business. And for a startup that doesn't have a brand associated with it, not much capital runway, it's really prohibitive, to be able to build something when you can't actually get the people and the skills that you need to build the thing that you're building. How does 1835i fit in there, and how does this model get kind of then help accelerate a founder who has a great idea, who might have done a lean startup approach and has got a product out in the hands of customers and it's generating some revenue, but really needs more than just capital to scale, needs infrastructure and all those other, and the talent as well?
Yeah, so in the lab, we have a mix of resource available, and also, we have the budget to recruit in as necessary. But I see that being a mix of, obviously, tech resource. Developers is something that all fintech startups, or all tech startups more broadly, I speak to, struggle to find, as well as designers. Finance, marketing, broader resource to really help them build out their business idea, and their business model, and then sort of, lift it up. So there is all of that kind of resource available, and depending on the founder and the founder's background, and if they have a team already, and whatever their solution is, it's a mix. So again, we're not trying to be formulaic. It's actually sort of what they need. But I see the real value proposition being startups want to, not only do they need help to build out their business idea, they want connections to customers. They want also, and it's not just ANZ Bank, ANZ's affiliates, portfolio companies in the fund. In the lab, we want to test things with portfolio companies where relevant. And you build out that broader partnership base. It's all about it. It's all about an ecosystem. So connections to customers and to the bank's customers, I think, and having an easy, seamless way to do that is a huge win. And that's certainly what I know startups have struggled with. It's what is, go to market is hard.
Monica, what have been some of the biggest wins for 1835i?
That's a great question. So we've obviously built a strong portfolio, which we're really proud of through our venture side. We've also created through the labs 4 businesses which have spun out and that are all super interesting propositions. We've got 13 companies in our portfolio, and our IRR is really strong. And many of our portfolio companies are engaging with ANZ, which is super exciting.
What advice would you have for founders who were perhaps interested in 1835i?
So I think we're super keen to hear from founders. So come and speak to us, connect with us. We're keen to have conversations. I think it's important for founders to understand our mandate. So we're not here to invest in a standalone, really interesting fintech business that has no interest in ANZ. That's not our mandate. So I think understanding that and reflecting on that deeply is important. And for some fintechs, that's not the right thing. You have your business model set up, and ANZ might not fit into that, and so that wouldn't be a great fit. So if you're looking for sort of a company development partner and a partnership with ANZ, being clear on that helps us be clear on how we can work with you.
And Lynda, what advice would you have?
Yeah, I think we are very open to partnering within the mandate, as Monica said. But be clear about the proposition and what does a partnership look like for them. They need to do some thinking about that as well and be able to articulate that, whether it's with the bank, whether it's with the portfolio companies. Be familiar with the portfolio, and a partnership can take many forms, right? It kind of can be product capability, etc. So what does a partnership look like for them, and be clear about that, and reach out, email me.
Yeah.
So we're open to talking, we're open to understanding the ecosystem better, but be very sort of clear in the proposition.
And that's a great point as well, is that we do have different types of partnerships within that mandate. So does ANZ provide some kind of capability to the startup? Does the startup become a vendor? Does it become a partner? There's all
customer. There's it can look in a very, and then you think about ANZ's customer base, both corporate and consumer. So it obviously depends on what the founder's solution is. But what do they see a partnership looking like?
So it's not essentially then a pitch begging for money, but more of an exploratory discussion where they come with some ideas of how they could potentially partner, or there could be a synergistic relationship there with the bank, and then there's a number of different options that potentially you could make something work.
Yeah, and look, I had a conversation with a company today. I'll just give you an example, right? And they're not a fintech company per se, but they have an offering for small businesses. It's more in sort of the cybersecurity space, and they are having conversations with a large telco. And I was just interested, and I said, we'd love to socialize this with ANZ. Yeah, and I think part of the problem is knowing where to start, pounding the pavement. It takes time. So if you can make that connectivity more fruitful and constructive, then that's what we want to do.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit more just about kind of some of the things that you're seeing out there. For me, it's been great certainly this year, where I've got back to roots and focused more on the kind of early startup phase, and I'm seeing some fantastic organizations. I'm doing the People's Choice Awards for the Finnies and emerging fintech category. It's never been stronger. Seeing some really, just a really broad and diverse, kind of problems are being addressed. And I was really keen to understand what you're seeing. What your kind of general sentiment is around, where we're standing now, what we've got to do better.
Fintech so far has been around digitizing distribution. We haven't really seen, from a consumer's perspective, true product innovation. And I would like to see some product innovation. And, that's not, that's probably kind of, if it's a regulated product, that's obviously within the bank to solve. But I think that there's enough out there for other sort of small businesses to solve also.
And Monica?
Yeah, so just to build on that and what you said earlier, I think what will be really interesting is seeing what comes over the rest of 2022 and into 23. I just think the macroeconomic environment has changed so much. And I was listening to one of your podcasts from your wrap up on 2021, and you were interviewing a few people, and I guess I won't name names because the prediction didn't turn out, and it was sort of, we want 2021 to look like booming growth and over COVID and smooth sailing, kind of back to normal. And what we've seen is really different. Globally, we've obviously got significant geopolitical instability. I just think it will be super interesting in how that and interest rates will impact the fintech environment in Australia, because I think we're a generation that's never seen an interest rate rise. We don't really know what that feels like. So I just think all of those sorts of macro trends will just be really interesting to watch over the next 12 months.
In terms of, I guess, where you see the opportunities for fintech, Monica, is there anything that's kind of got you passionate at this point?
Again, I think the last point you made about innovation, true innovation from a product perspective for consumers, I think is a really interesting one. And I don't know the answers to that, but I think as a consumer, you haven't been able to take advantage of all this change in the fintech industry in Australia. And we've spoken about how that's grown over the last 5 years since you guys were introduced, and it has grown significantly. But looking to the next stage of seeing real innovation for consumers will be really, really interesting.
Now, what can we expect from 1835 in the next 12 months?
Oh, well, I think you need to stay tuned. I mean, essentially, we see the next 12 months. Look, a lot's happening outside, but in terms of our own internal sort of measures of success, albeit while we've only, quite recently spun out of the bank, we want to very quickly sort of keep investing in great businesses. We've had 4 ventures spin out of the lab so far. Very excited about Dataco, which Monica mentioned. They were on Startup Daily on Friday, so that is sort of hot off the press. We want to spin more ventures out of the lab, and we want to work with more founders in helping them scale their businesses, but also work with more founders to connect them in terms of partnering opportunities. So across the piece, as we talked about. So if we can do all of those things and really connect the ecosystem better, if we can do all of those things over the 12 months, then I think we've had a good year.
And I think we're going to have Dataco on the show in the next 4 or 5 weeks. So they'll be able to, give the other side of the equation, which is from the founder perspective, the how they found the experience of working with 1835i.
Yeah, and they've only just recently spun out so that they can talk to that experience too.
Well, that wraps up today's show. Thanks for joining me, Monica and Lynda. If people are interested in getting involved or getting in touch, what's the best way for them to make contact?
So you can find us on LinkedIn. We have a website, 1835i.com, and you're always welcome to reach out to anyone as part of our team.
Lynda at 1835i.com. Monica at 1835i.com.
Monica, Lynda, it's been great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with 1835 in this next 12 months.
Thanks so much, Dexter.
Thanks a lot. This has been great to chat.
And you can connect with me, Dexter Cousins, on LinkedIn and Twitter. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, remember to press follow on your favorite podcast player, and please consider leaving us a review. It really does help me in bringing in great guests and help fintech fans like you discover the show. Fintech Chatter is presented by Tier 1 People, leaders in fintech executive search. We'll help you launch, scale, and innovate by delivering world-class talent. And you can find out more at tier1people.com.